Dexter moved to New York City under such strange circumstances, and it wouldn't take anyone long to realize that. His newest friend, Blessing, is very trusting, but with enough weird coincidences, he could easily discover Dexter's secret. Let's look at all the ways he could figure out that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, starting with the reasons they ever crossed paths to begin with. After being shot by his son, Dexter was left in a coma in a hospital bed outside of Iron Lake. When he came out of it, he was told by his doctor that Harrison had left town weeks earlier and no one had seen him since.
Last we heard, your son left town weeks ago.
While attending a physical therapy appointment, Dexter's nurse mentioned that a gruesome murder had occurred in New York City, the details of which were so similar to his own MO as the Bay Harbor Butcher that he knew it had to be his son who had done it. Though he couldn't be positive that Harrison was the one behind the murder of Ryan Foster, the odds of it being anyone else were very low. The body of the victim was cut up into 9 pieces and placed in garbage bags, and Dexter taught Harrison to dispose of a body in exactly that way when they took care of Kurt Caldwell, the runaway killer of Iron Lake. He didn't have many visitors while in the hospital, but the first one was Teddy Reed, the new acting sheriff of Iron Lake, since Chief Angela Bishop had skipped town with her daughter Audrey, most likely out of fear for their lives. Teddy came to see if Dexter intended to press charges against the police department of Iron Lake, falsely believing that he'd been shot at by one police officer, Logan, unjustifiably, and then actually shot by ex-Chief Bishop shortly thereafter. Teddy had no way of knowing the full details of those shootings, but with the knowledge that he did have, he explained to Dexter that it was his duty to investigate further and ask if Dexter wanted to sue them for the damages he believed were done to him. Dexter, of course, wouldn't want anyone looking too closely into those incidents, so he declined to press charges.
No, that's okay. It was a misunderstanding. I prefer to just put it behind me.
If he hadn't, Teddy and everyone else may have found out the truth. He had attacked Logan and then was shot by his own son Harrison as a result. The second person to visit Dexter was his old co-worker, Captain Angel Batista. He was on his way to Iron Lake just before Dexter was shot to meet with then Police Chief Angela Bishop. She correctly suspected that Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher, and when Batista found out Dexter was still alive, he couldn't stop himself from flying to Iron Lake to get to the bottom of everything. His ex-wife, Maria LaGuerta, died years ago under suspicious circumstances, and although there was the official explanation that she was killed by Hector Estrada, an old drug kingpin who was also responsible for the death of Dexter's mother, that never quite set right with Batista, especially not after discovering that Dexter faked his own death. When Chief Bishop ran into him at a cop conference in the city, he disclosed that he was a detective from Miami and mentioned his old friend Dexter Morgan had passed away, as well as his sister Deb. Batista also mentioned that his friend had a son named Harrison before he passed.
Oh yeah, Harrison. Cute kid.
It was then that Angela knew that her boyfriend, Jim Lindsay, was actually Dexter Morgan. What she couldn't understand, however, was why he'd fake his own death, abandon his son, and flee across the country to another state. But she knew he had to be hiding something horrible to do all of that. That was when she started to put the pieces together. A local prominent resident of Iron Lake had recently gone missing. Matt Caldwell was a man whose name was mired in controversy due to a boating accident he was involved in that resulted in the death of 5 people. But it was no accident at all. Matt purposefully rammed into the boat of a rival, injuring himself, his good friend, and killing everyone on board the other vessel. When Dexter found out, he was infuriated and would go on to take Matt out after Matt personally offended him.
Hey, easy there. Is a problem?
Before that, Dexter hadn't killed anyone in Iron Lake. He was on a decade-long hiatus from killing before eliminating Matt. That kept him safe and out of any controversy for years, but he finally snapped one day after Matt shot a beautiful white buck that Dexter had grown attached to. Then Dexter attacked a man in town who had sold drugs to some local kids, drugs that nearly killed his son Harrison when he took them at a party one night. When Angela spoke with the drug dealer, she learned that Dexter had apparently jabbed him with a needle before attacking him. The wheel mark left on his neck, as well as the neck of his supplier, who was found dead in his home, matched the wheel marks on the necks of the Bay Harbor Butcher's victims. Slowly but surely, it all started to make sense. Angela knew that Dexter had to have fled from Miami because he was a killer who needed to evade the consequences of his actions, and now he was picking off people in Iron Lake that he thought had wronged him and others. That would explain Matt Caldwell's disappearance, the death of the drug dealer, his hidden child, and the wheel mark similarities. Then Dexter's cabin burned down, and she found one of the screws that Matt had implanted in his hip after the boating incident.
The type of screws and plate used to repair that sort of fracture.
How would Dexter have that if he was not involved in Matt's disappearance and probable death? Matt's body was never found, of course, because Dexter got rid of all the evidence he could. But at that point, Angela couldn't ignore her own instincts, and she brought Dexter in for questioning, intending to prove that he not only killed Matt, but was also the true Bay Harbor Butcher. Batista had already returned to Miami by that time, but she called him to gain more evidence against Dexter. While speaking with him, it was made clear that Batista had plenty of questions for Dexter himself. He didn't even know that Dexter was still alive. Angela had to send Batista a picture of Dexter and her together from just a month earlier for him to even believe that his old friend was still alive. Once he saw it, though, he grabbed the files he needed and immediately booked a flight to Iron Lake to get to the bottom of everything. But before he could get there, Dexter would kill one of the arresting officers, Logan, and try to escape with his son, Harrison. Unfortunately for Dexter, Harrison still had a strong moral code at the time, and when he learned that Dexter killed Logan, he was disgusted. Harrison told his father to turn himself in, but Dexter had no intention of going to prison. Realizing that his son wouldn't join him, Dexter tried to run on his own, but Harrison wasn't about to let Dexter get away with what he had done to Logan. As Dexter turned to leave, Harrison cocked his rifle, and when Dexter heard it, he actually encouraged his son to go ahead and shoot him so they could both be free. And Harrison did just that. Just after Harrison shot his father, Angela arrived, told him to leave town, and staged the scene to make it appear as if she was the one who shot Dexter.
Do you want to press charges against the Iron Lake Sheriff's Department for Chief Angela Bishop shooting you?
Luckily for Dexter, the cold of the snow in the woods slowed his blood loss, and the paramedics arrived in time to save his life, but his troubles were far from over. He was resuscitated, and that was when he slipped into a coma that lasted for 10 weeks. When he awoke, Teddy visited him and let him know that he would not face any charges for killing Logan or even escaping from prison. But before Dexter could even exhale, Angel Batista arrived and started asking all sorts of questions that, if answered truthfully, would place him right back in police custody. To avoid any additional interrogation and get back to his son, Dexter ran once again. He headed to New York City to find Harrison, and though he was successful, Batista wasn't going to take the fact that Dexter dodged him, once again laying down. With the help of Chief Teddy, Batista tracked Dexter's truck to New York City and eventually found Harrison, which soon led him right to Dexter's new apartment. Since arriving in New York, Dexter had already found a job, friends, a car, and secured housing. Batista was barely even surprised by that fact because if Dexter was the sociopathic killer he suspected him of being, it would make sense that he would be able to manipulate everyone around him and blend in so quickly. The man that helped Dexter get settled into the city was a kind rideshare driver named Blessing. Blessing was immediately taken by Dexter and believed him to be a sincere person who just needed a bit of direction after moving to a new city. In order to help out his new friend, Blessing offered the lower apartment of his property to Dexter, effectively becoming his landlord.
And we have a vacant apartment. Yeah. We can open him a very fair price.
Really?
So when Batista found Dexter's apartment, he found Blessing. Though initially protective of Dexter, Blessing lowered his guard when Batista informed him that he was an old friend of Dexter's from Miami. Of course, Batista was not there as a friend, but Blessing had no way of knowing that. He welcomed Batista with open arms, and by the time Dexter returned home, they were upstairs, laughing and salsa dancing. With Batista in town tracking Dexter and worried that he may kill again, it's only a matter of time before Blessing learns that Dexter is a serial killer. And Batista isn't backing off. Dexter told him in no uncertain terms to stay away from him and leave his son and his new life alone.
Stay away from me. From my house, my family, and especially my son.
But Batista let him know that that wasn't about to happen. If Batista keeps coming around asking questions, which he made it clear that he would be, why wouldn't Blessing become suspicious? And it's not just that Batista is investigating him, the front of Blessing's house has cameras on it, and one man already came into Dexter's apartment but wasn't seen leaving. If he were to review the footage, he would notice Gareth, the Gemini killer, enter Dexter's home but never come out. Of course, he did leave, but it was in garbage bags after Dexter killed and dismembered him. The exact MO of the Bay Harbor Butcher. With police sniffing around, people disappearing inside the apartment, and the fact that he barely even knows Dexter but is aware that he left Miami, the place the BHB was active, under questionable circumstances years ago, it's not going to be that difficult for Blessing to start piecing everything together, just like Dokes, Maria, Deb, Angela, and Batista were able to if things keep going the way that they are. And Blessing already almost caught Dexter once when he stopped to fix the shower curtain in his apartment. Little did Blessing know that Gareth's corpse was slowly rotting just behind the curtain. But if he had simply moved it to the side, even slightly, he would have already discovered Dexter's secret. And though he doesn't fit the second rule of the code to never hurt an innocent, according to the first rule, don't get caught, Blessing's life would have been over had he found Gareth in the shower that night. Still, he would have known that Dexter was a killer before dying. It wasn't only lucky for Dexter that Blessing didn't move the curtain too much, but also lucky for Blessing himself as well. Had he done so, he probably would have been right next to Gareth, murdered in Dexter's bathtub. After finally getting back to his son, escaping justice in Iron Lake, and beginning a new life in New York City, there is not a chance in hell that Dexter would have allowed Blessing to take all of that away from him. But that doesn't mean that Blessing won't find out. It's incredibly likely that eventually the facts will be inescapable. Dexter has already found himself engrossed in a serial killer syndicate, a member of which found his apartment and ended up in a furnace as a result. And Dexter's been picking off the others in that group one by one. He's already killed Lowell, got Mia placed in prison where she later died by quote-unquote suicide, and taken out both of the Gemini killers. Even if Prater and Charlie don't know who Dexter is yet, if they find out, everyone in his orbit will be in danger, and then Blessing will have to realize that his new friend is not what he seems. Charlie is already suspicious of Dexter after he killed Gareth in front of everyone at Prater's latest gathering.
With a wine glass? Doesn't make sense.
He went after me. What was I supposed to do?
She didn't buy for a second that Gareth went after Dexter for no reason. Gemini kills in pairs and has a very unique and specific staging as part of his ritual. Going after a single person with a broken wine glass is so far outside of his MO as to be ridiculous, and Charlie knows that. If she and Prater figure out who Dexter is, or even just where he lives, they will show up there, and that would be enough to clue Blessing into the fact that Dexter is hiding something dark and potentially life-threatening. And going back to Batista, there is no way he is going to let Blessing and his innocent family stay in the dark if he believes that they are in danger. It's not the Bay Harbor Butcher's typical MO to hurt innocent people, but Batista knows that innocent people still die when they are too close to Dexter. Dexter's own wife and sister have already been collateral damage of his murderous ways, and several others have been as well. What would stop Blessing, his wife, his daughter Joy, or anyone else he cares about from suffering the same fate? Even Harrison is in danger due to his proximity to Dexter. Batista would likely see it as his responsibility to protect them if things became too dangerous. He may not be a cop anymore, but he is still a good person who wouldn't want to see anyone else die just because Dexter is a serial killer. He is putting his own life at risk by telling Dexter, but he isn't going to stop. He wants answers and justice for all the people Dexter has harmed, and he isn't going to let that list get any longer if he can stop it in any way. That likely means eventually cluing Blessing onto the fact that his latest tenant is a killer. Between Batista, Prater, and Charlie, and the cameras in front of the home, Blessing would be a fool not to realize at some point that Dexter is a dangerous criminal. It's not clear exactly how he will find out that he's the Bay Harbor Butcher or what he will do when he does find out, but the writing is on the wall. Dexter's true identity will be exposed to Blessing sooner or later. There's almost no doubt. If you liked this video, check out our video breaking down every theory on Angel Batista's fate.